Hello again, how you all doing? Back on the dog walk, aren't we? Eh? Being ignorant as usual. Well, wasn't last week a bit of a crazy one? I've already mentioned Starmer's trip to America to see Trump. But then there's Zelensky's the day after. I'll just play you a little bit of it here.
All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influenced.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Good stuff, ain't it? Now, why couldn't he have done that with Keir Starmer? Because I firmly believe that had he done so, things would have turned out a little bit differently than they have done. That maybe Keir wouldn't be so pig-headed, pardon me, and full of himself to proclaim that he's going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Is that right? The funny thing is, I don't think anyone's going to fight for him, or for Ukraine for that matter. I dare say it'd be completely the opposite. Even if they try and conscript people, they're going to have a fight on their hands. I don't think Mr. Starmer has thought this through, or Mr. Macron, or the rest of that batshit EU mob. The man is a buffoon. I think we should get this straight. He has less brains than an ironing board. About as much as personality as one. Honestly, it's ridiculous. He wants to go and protect another nation's borders whilst not protecting his own. Says a lot about him there, doesn't it, really? And of course, he's getting the usual pushback off everybody online, basically telling him exactly the same as I've just said. You're an idiot. Because he is. Britain, you're right, mate. Britain altogether has roughly 30,000 active troops. They're well trained. That's it. The Navy isn't doing much better, and neither is the Air Force. In fact, I dare say the entire military in general is nowhere near capable of doing anything. And so the EU are proposing an EU defence force. Now, this is something that's been coming for a long time. Nigel Farage was saying this years ago, as were many others, as we'll see here.
I was told again and again in the Brexit debate that there would not be a European army, there would not be an independent military force in the European Union. Well, here it is. Here it is. And the most interesting comment wasn't Mr. Juncker's, where he talked about parallel command structures. I think it was Mr. Verhofstadt's, when he basically said, go away, America, we can do this on our own. You cannot run these two structures in parallel with each other without one competing against the other. And once you've got an independent military force, then the argument becomes stronger to start using it. And I remember Mr. Verhofstadt, back at the time of Libya and elsewhere, you itching for the EU to militarily start getting involved. And for a project that prides itself on being about peace and reconciliation, I think what's been proposed today is potentially very dangerous, and I wonder if you put it to referendums around the European Union whether people would endorse it. I don't think.
German and French troops fighting side by side, just like these soldiers of the Franco-German Brigade. If things go Jean-Claude Juncker's way, this will be the future of European defense. In an interview, the president of the EU Commission called for a European army. It's not a new idea, and it has many supporters in Germany, even in the defense ministry.
We want
to expand this cooperation between different European armies so that we can utilize our joint potential, especially considering the monetary restraints.
If member countries jointly order military equipment such as tanks, they could save billions each year. It's an important argument, especially when there's a crisis. But the Ukraine conflict seems to be the main reason the joint army idea is resurfacing right now. Germany's opposition Left Party rejects the idea.
The Left Party thinks Juncker's suggestion is a bad idea. It's definitely aimed at Russia. We believe the EU should conduct a peaceful foreign policy.
There are many obstacles to the creation of a European army. Every country would have to allow Brussels to make decisions about its soldiers. That includes Germany, where currently only Parliament can determine whether to deploy Bundeswehr troops abroad.
The battle that took place here was the longest and deadliest in the First World War. It lasted 10 months and claimed some 700,000 lives. And while he was visiting this site, the French President Emmanuel Macron has been talking about the importance of not taking peace for granted. Today called on the creation of a real European army to fight against the threat of Russia and even the United States. It will be very interesting to see what his Russian and American counterparts have to say about those plans. Emmanuel Macron will be meeting Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump at the end of the week.
Effectively with the Europeans on the military side of things, or is it better to say this whole thing's a fantasy and to make sure NATO's the right route for doing things?
There's no doubt that NATO is the way we should be dealing with this situation. And NATO is coming much more into its own than it's been for a long time now in response to this. I think the EU has been, of course, they've done a few quite good things in relation to Russia, including sanctions, etc. But they've also tried to use this crisis to in a very cynical way, I think, to try and set up this European Defence Union, which people like Macron have been pushing for a long time. And unfortunately, they're trying to absorb Britain into that as well. My view is that the EU should keep out of the military sphere, should work through NATO, and certainly there's no way that Britain should even contemplate taking part in the EU Defence Union.
Aye. For that we were called conspiracy theories. But it's always been the goal to make the EU an EU federalised state, a united EU federalised state, much like the US. The only problem is that in the EU, there are several different nations who speak several different languages, and every single one of them wants to be the top dog. Whichever country is deemed worthy of taking that commanding position is going to be looked down upon by everyone else, and they're not going to do their orders. Like I said, they've not thought this through. Every nation is proud. The Poles, the Romanians, the Estonians, Latvians, all of them feel like it should be them that takes command because they're on the front line, which is true, they are. But the Germans, being the Germans, and because they have because the EU's commissioner is German, and 90% of the EU Commission, I dare say, they feel like they should be in control. So does France. So does the UK, even though we're not fucking part of them. There is not a chance in hell that they will have a cohesive, well, anything really. Because no one will back the other. They all think they should be on the top, at the top spot, in command. You see, this is where NATO differed. At least with NATO, although it was a god-awful fucking state of affairs with it, the US took command. For the simple reason they had the most money, the most troops, come on, and the best equipment. But you can't say that about any of the other nations. Now sure, the UK's got the best equipment now, the most money-ish, but with barely any troops. France is the same. France and the UK are the only two nuclear powers in the whole of Europe. So should we be on top? Should we be in command? No, I don't think so. This whole idea of a European Defence Force is going to collapse even before it started. Ukraine's going to be its death knell. I just hope, I really do hope, that Ukraine isn't the death knell for everyone else.